Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Choose Your Dream Design Build Team. My name is Michelle, and I'm the Executive Assistant at TQ Construction. And now I'm pleased to introduce to you Project Relations, Megan.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for all of your help and support. So we've completed a full series of our webinars, and we're starting back off at the beginning again here. Um, so we're discussing how to choose kind of your perfect design build team today. And so every webinar, we like to kind of go through a general hit list of what our contents are generally going to look like. And then we dive into each of the topics a little bit more deeply. And then at the end, we bring it all home and review any questions that anyone might have. This is all really useful information for anybody who's really starting their journey and trying to figure out, how do I tell the difference between, all of these different companies that exist out there? Um, what kind of tools should I have in my hypothetical toolbox to be able to compare and contrast, to be able to go through? So essentially, as you go through this process, you create a short list of people that you want to talk to, from scouring the internet. You're going to want to connect with everybody. You're going to want to do some kind of a site visit. uh, Typically, most companies will do some sort of an assessment, or extremely preliminary quote, and then at that point you'll get to a point where you feel confident and comfortable with someone, that you'll select someone and officially engage in working with them. Creating a short list. Where can you find contractors or design build companies? There's lots of different places. You can find them on social media. You can find them with a simple Google search. You can find them at home shows. We like to show up at, TQ attends the Vancouver Fall Home Show and the BC Home and Garden Show every year, as well as the Haven show, which they usually host at the Van Dusen Gardens. I know that there's also a number of other home shows depending on where your area is. So say you're joining our webinar from the interior or from the island, they have their own home shows in those areas as well. The great thing about home shows is that it gets you right in front of people, the ability to shake their hands, do that initial vibe check. Um, and also, most of the time, the people who are attending home shows, they're working in that local area. So if you're attending a home show or a trade show for the area that you're wanting to do construction in, especially if you're looking for a contractor, then they're used to working in that area, and they have everything that they need to work in that area. Referrals are also great. If you have friends and family who have had a top-notch experience with a general contractor or design build team, then that's obviously worth its weight in way more than gold. Um, because that's a personal review that you can trust, right? Internet reviews are also really great. Um, I often tell people that they should look at them. Obviously, you want to look at, it's no different than when you look at reviews for literally anything on the internet, um, where, there will be the outliers of this was fantastic, perfect, nothing wrong with it. And then there will be the one-star reviews of if something wonky happened with something. So you kind of want to kind of take a look at what the consistent experience is that someone's having with any given company or service. Um, and then also just looking at what associations are they a part of. TQ is a part of the Haven Home Builders Association of Vancouver, which is a part of the BC Home Builders Association, which is National Canadian Home Builders Association. But we're also a part of a few other things. Um, Michelle, what else are we a part of? We're a part of, you know what all of our memberships are and all of the things we participate in.
We're part of the National Kitchen and Bath Association also.
That's right. So just kind of taking a look at, you know, reputable builders do tend to run in the same circles. Um, it's, we're all friends and all looking to provide a good service to our clients. So once you kind of get that initial like short list of people, typically people kind of maybe come out with like 3 to 5 people that they actually want to like interview and go through that process. So, there's the initial like reaching out and phone calls and Google searching and all of that. And then there's like the actual like making contact and wanting to ask real questions and start setting up meetings and all of those things. When you're going through that initial contact process, your contractor or whomever you're speaking with is probably going to ask you questions about what work you're wanting to do. What do you like about your current home? What issues do you have with your current home? What's your dream scope versus your needs? Why are you doing the work? Are you budgeting the work out of like funds that you have available? Are you financing it? What kind of financing are you doing? And how long do you plan on being in the space after you've completed the work? These are all extremely personal questions, but they're all really important because they help both yourself figure out like again like what your hopes versus your needs versus your priorities are in the project, and it also helps you find like a really good fit with a potential designer, contractor, design build team. And it also helps on the other side of it, it also helps the potential design build team figure out like are they the best fit for you and whether or not they can help provide a scope of work that really fits with all of your qualifications and your needs, because everybody's wanting to set everyone else up for success. If everyone's not like very honest with each other from the get-go, that it becomes very difficult to provide a project that really encapsulates what you want your scope to look like and what you want your finished project to look like and what your expectations are. So being really upfront with that. I understand that a lot of people are really nervous about sometimes sharing their budget up front and a few other details up front. Sometimes if there's like accessibility needs and things. But when you get to the point where you feel comfortable with someone and you feel comfortable trusting them, then you really need to share those things as upfront as you can so that your contractor can help advise you to create a project that meets all of those qualifications. So then once you've kind of gone through and done all of that initial qualifications, you'll set up your first visit, which is where, they come in, they're doing a walkthrough of the space with you. Even if you're doing a new build, people will often want to see like what your existing home looks like so that we can get an idea of where you currently live. When you set up your first visit and you're doing your initial walkthrough, you want to be able to walk through people what's the issue with the existing space, why does it not work for you, as well as what you're hoping to get from the space. So what are your dreams for the space, as well as what does an existing work. This is really important to do both for renovations as well as for new homes, because it's good to do like a compare contrast of what your existing living situation is, what your existing style is, and what might be like the little isms in your space that need to be accounted for. Do you have pets? Do you have kids? Do you have a specific hobby that needs like its own space to be accounted for? We had one client who she did like the lion dancing with the like the Chinese lion costumes for that they take out for multiple ceremonies, and they had like the big drums, and so she stored all of that. So we actually did like a custom walk-in closet specifically to store all of those things so that they had a safe place to stay. So that's a really great example of like something that you wouldn't necessarily think of as being standard in a project, as well as like if you have cats, you want to make sure you have a place for the litter boxes. You want to make sure that you have a place for like the food bowls, all of those kinds of things. Does everybody have access to all the things that they need? Those kinds of things. And then when you're doing your follow-up visit, um, it's really unfair to kind of ask someone, especially in more complicated projects, to just like on the fly. They're like, oh yeah, I think it's going to be X dollars to accomplish what you're wanting to accomplish. Most people will want to kind of be able to walk away and think and percolate and organize their thoughts, or at least that's my personal preference. And so at a follow-up visit, you'll likely get walked through more of like what the actual process is working with a company, um, what all of their steps are, what order they do things in, how much work they do in order to prepare for something. And then once you go through that, you're also going to go through like an assessment of what the project would potentially look like. Um, at this stage, again, it's extremely preliminary. It's not specific to like whatever your final project is. I almost always see something change in a project from like our initial meetings through to the point of like right before construction, where certain details come out of the woodwork, or sometimes a client will decide to take on more or less scope to fit with whatever choices that they've been making in order to make the rest of the project fit within their feasibility qualifications. You'll also want to talk about timelines at this stage, both for like your initial planning moving into it. Like a lot of people forget that you cannot just turn around a plan and a design in like 2 weeks and then submit it to the city and then start construction. Like sometimes people forget that planning for a project takes a significant amount of time, depending on the size of the project. It obviously can be shorter or longer before actually executing said work. So someone might say like, hey, I want to do bathroom reno or a kitchen reno, and just having like a clear understanding of how long it's going to take to like plan through what your new layout is, what all of your new material selections are, how long is it going to take to place an order for everything. If you're changing things in a really significant way, do you need to apply for a permit? If you're in a condo, do you need to talk to your strata? So those are all kind of like a part of your timelines, and making sure that there's a good understanding between yourself and your contractor, or designer on those things, as well as making sure that there's a clear understanding in terms of what their turnaround times kind of look like within their team. And that all kind of converges in on reviewing expectations for engaging in work. So making sure that everybody understands what the deliverables are from each other, and then also what like the actual agreement is. So there's just general like, do we vibe with each other? Do we get along? Do we trust each other? Are we getting the feeling that we can solve problems together? Um, that's something that I often tell people is like a really big deal, because they'll often come down to like two or three companies that they feel very similarly about. Or it'll come down to like myself and one other person. And I often encourage people to really think about and deliberate who they feel they're going to be able to solve problems with, who they're going to feel comfortable saying, I actually don't like this option because I like this and you nailed it, is just as important as like, I actually really don't like this one detail. And feeling comfortable telling your team that you don't like a detail, and having them change that for you, so that when it's actually in your home, you love the project. So then once you're good and you've selected someone that you feel really comfortable with, you start the work. So typically at that point you move into an actual agreement. For us, it's a design services agreement is typically our first step. Depends on you know what that company calls it. And so at that point you've established that that they can do the work. They're physically capable. They meet all of your project's needs. You feel like they have a really good understanding of what you need out of your project, what the scope is of the project. Um, you feel that they will be able to take you through the project in a relatively problem-free manner. Not that there won't be things to solve because it's a puzzle, so we're solving the puzzle, but to make sure that the person that you're working with is able to take you through the process and be able to help navigate all of the things that might come up with you, depending on, whatever the issues might be with um, your project. Like, for example, if your home is on like a really slanted lot, there might be some challenges with that. Or if it's on a weird shaped lot, there might be some challenges with that. We had a home that we did a number of years now ago that was it had been stratified off of a larger piece of property, and it had two really long properties on either side of it. So when we initially did like the initial bylaw zoning calculations, the required setback for the front yard was just ridiculous because of the two flanking properties. And so making sure that, whomever you're working with is kind of comfortable with navigating those kinds of challenges with you, and helping you navigate through them. Um, and then do you get along with them? Which I cannot stress enough how important that one is are you able to solve problems with someone, get along with someone, and do you feel comfortable and like you can trust that person, like they will take care of you. And if you kind of check off all of those things, then you sign into an agreement and you officially start working with your team. So to just review over your process, essentially before you engage with an actual team of selecting a team, is creating a short list from the multiple resources that we went over of where you can find different contractors and designers and design build teams. Um, you connect with your favorites to start having them come over to your home and do site visits. You follow up with some sort of assessment to kind of gauge what their understanding of your project is. So, you meet with them, you give them your understanding of the project and what your needs are and your hopes are. You meet back with them to make sure that, they've understood it and they've also put something together to show you that they understand it. And then once you kind of get the feeling that, yes, this is the person I want to vibe with, this is the company I want to vibe with, you officially start working with them. Are there any questions from anybody?
Yes, we do have one question.
I love it.
So Dan is asking for a full home build, approximately 2,000 square feet. How long would it take to pull a permit for the structure? Is there a backlog?
Well, my first question for something like that would be like, what municipality are you in? To answer generally speaking right now, we're seeing reasonable turnaround from most cities right now. There's still like a list of things that you kind of have to go through. So in terms of like the size of the new build, doesn't really make that big of a difference in terms of which municipality, as long as it fits within the requirements for a single family home, if that's what you're wanting. So whether it's 2,000 square feet, 2,500 square feet, 3,000 square feet, doesn't really matter as long as it fits within the box that is like the imaginary box on your property that it's allowed to be in. I'd say if you're in Vancouver, we typically, what are we? We're in May right now. We're kind of sitting at between like 4 to 6 months for a development permit, building permit to kind of get released through the city of Vancouver, because they churn them out as like one piece. City of Burnaby, I think they're sitting at around 4 months. Um, and then for other municipalities, I'm not sure exactly what they're sitting at for new builds right now. My understanding is that North Vancouver is still pretty quick. I think they're sitting around 2 to 3 months, assuming that all your ducks are in a row. and you've engaged with all of the appropriate professionals. Um, and then typically North Delta is pretty quick, and I'm less familiar with kind of like once you go out into the valley. Um, and I'm not as familiar with where Coquitlam's sitting right now for their city hall. We haven't had to submit a permit to them super recently.
So Dan had mentioned he's on Vancouver Island, so we don't probably know too much there, right?
Yeah. I would say, yeah, if you're wondering about like Vancouver Island, I would reach out to either local contractors in the area, or you can call your municipality building department or send them an email. They'll probably take like a week or two to get back to you to let you know. But I mean, we are seeing a general like slowdown in the industry just because of, you know, current climate. People are feeling unsure. There's less, like a lot of development has slowed down or paused. So we're seeing building departments having a little bit more time on their hands to complete single family residential permits. So,
Okay. And I think that's the only question for now. Does anyone have another question for Megan here? Okay, cool. Oh, we have one more question from Philip
perfect.
here. Is there a common way of handling disputes?
Um, it depends on the dispute. Uh, I encourage people to bring up whatever your issue is as soon as possible and not let it fester. Like it's like picking out a contractor is very much you're picking out a relationship, right? Like we make the analogy that it's like dating. So your initial design phase is, well, picking out a contractor is like, just trying to find someone that you feel comfortable dating. And then once you move into actually like doing a design, it's the dating process. And then once you get into construction, you're like in like a committed relationship with that person, or with that entity. Because it's not usually a short experience. Like, for example, in the example of a large renovation or a new construction, you're probably looking at, probably 4 to 6 months worth of, design and material selections and getting everything ready for permit. And then you submit for permit, and that takes 3 to 6 months, depending on your municipality, how quick it's turning around, what's required. If the municipalities have recently decided to change things on us because they don't really tell us ahead of time. Uh, and then there's the actual like, construction process, which, that could be anywhere from, if it's a really small project, it could be like a couple months, could be half a year, could be just over a year if it's a new home. And then there's your warranty after that, right? So we have a 2 year standard warranty that we provide, like a bumper to bumper for all renovations that we do. And then there's also like the standard 2, 5, 10 warranty for all new construction. And so that's a long time to be engaged with someone and to have a relationship with someone. So if you're feeling misunderstood about something, or if you're noticing that you want to potentially do something differently, or if there's a detail that you're feeling uncomfortable with, bring it up ahead of like as soon as you notice it, so that it's not festering, or multiple trades don't come through before and you get a chance to talk to your supervisor or your team to fix it, and now it's more work and more hassle to go back and change it and fix it. um, Typically a lot of things can be handled pretty easily and pretty smoothly using just like good communication and bringing things up ahead of time. If you kind of get into like a more serious dispute, I would say it really depends on the nature of the dispute itself.
Right. And then we have one more question from Dan asking, what would a premium contractor provide as far as service that sets apart them from the rest?
Um, I mean, we consider ourselves a premium contractor, and for us, it's really that we're handling everything and everyone and creating basically a concierge service where you don't have to go and like track down your own engineer and you don't have to track down your own surveyor and you don't have to coordinate everybody and you don't have to go back and forth with the city and you don't have to manage all your trades. You don't have to order and manage all of your materials and it's all just handled and shows up and is installed properly and then warranted after the project is complete. So it's really the concierge service of can you be brought through this entire process with essentially your team coming up to you and being like, hey, would you like to do this or that? And give you like all of the information that you need to make your decision, along with like like what does it look like, how much does it cost, what are the potential consequences, and what do we think is best based off of what we've learned about you so far, um, and letting you kind of make that decision, and also depending on the person, some people want to also have like a design team tell them if they think something's a bad idea. Some people are like, nope, just like let me make my decisions. And unless I'm making a really, really bad decision that I'm not exactly aware of. And then some people also want the input from the design team to help, curb things like their budget and whatnot. Because there's like so many available products on the market that you might see something in a store and be like, this is what I want. And then the design team can help you find something really similar that either performs to the same or even sometimes better for a better price that we can get you with our relationships. And that's the other thing we bring is our relationships with all of our trades and suppliers and all of that for both product, service, install, and pricing. We get our own special discounts with our suppliers and trades.
I think that ends our Q&A here. There are no more further questions. So yeah, I think we're pretty much done here, right, Megan?
Yeah, I think so. That's perfect. Yeah, we're intending on doing our next webinar on June 18th. It's a Wednesday again. It's a little bit earlier on in the month than we typically go for. We typically try to go for the last Wednesday of the month, but because it's hitting so close to the end of the school year for elementary, middle, and high school, and the beginning of summer vacation and everything, we're pushing it back a little bit um, before the chaos fully ensues. And then we'll take a break for the summer and potentially start back up in the fall. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night, and we look forward to seeing you guys in June.
Thank you, everyone.